Greetings, Father Joe here, your friendly neighborhood pastor, coming to you on Friday of the 7th week of Easter. In our gospel today, we are reading from Gospel of John, chapter 21. It's the post-resurrection. Jesus is speaking to St. Peter, and he says, "Peter, do you love me more than these?" Peter says, "Yes, I like you." It's one is agape in Greek, the other is philios. He says, "Feed my lambs." Interesting. Jesus asks, "Do you love me?" Way up here, this divine love. Peter says, "Yes, I like you," or I have a friendship for you. And he doesn't correct him. He says, "Feed my lambs." Then Jesus says a second time, first he said, "Do you love me more than these?" Then he says, "Peter, do you love me? Do you agape me?" Peter says, "Yes, Lord, I philios you," or I like you. He says, "Tend my sheep." Then the third time, Jesus says, "Peter, do you like me?" He actually uses the word philios, so he comes down to Peter's level. He says, "Peter, do you like me?" Peter's embarrassed. He says, "Yes, Lord, you know everything. You know that I like you." He uses the word philios. Jesus says, "Feed my sheep." Normally, I preach on that agape philios, but today I just want to focus a little bit on feed my lambs, tend my sheep, feed my sheep. Jesus is telling Peter that he is going to be the shepherd. And that might not seem like much, but back in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 16, Jesus is teaching the people about the good shepherd, and they want him to stay where he is because he's getting very popular and doing lots of good stuff. And Jesus says, "No, I have to leave." He says, "I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold." And by the way, when I was in campus ministry at Columbia, I had some kid come up and say, "Oh, the Catholic Church is wrong because it says there should only be one church. But Jesus says that he has sheep that do not belong to this fold." And this was before iPhone, so I couldn't look it up. I was giving blood. But when I got home, I looked it up. And yes, it does say, Jesus does say, "I have sheep that don't belong to this fold." But the verse continues, "These also I must lead, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock with one shepherd." So Jesus's plan is that there will be one flock and one shepherd. So when Jesus tells St. Peter to tend my lambs feed my lambs, tend my sheep, feed my sheep, he's telling him that he wants him to be the shepherd. He wants him to be quasi-prime minister. In England, they have a king, or right now they have a queen, and that's the head of the country. But they also have a prime minister who forms a government and kind of runs things. So if you want something on this, go to Matthew chapter 16. Jesus asked the disciples, who do people say I am? But then he says, "And who do you say that I am?" And Peter says, "You are the Christ. You're the Son of the living God." And Jesus says, "I say to you, you are Peter," which is Cephas or rock. "And upon this Cephas or rock," that's in Aramaic, "I will build my church." And most people focus on that Cephas rock. But he continues, he says, "And the gates of the netherworld shall not prevail against it." And he says, "I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven." Oh my gosh. He's giving to a human being the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And he says, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. He has just given him a huge, great, insanely big responsibility. And so, when we think about this, we really need to be respectful of the Pope. The Pope has the office of St. Peter. He continues to lead the church. He continues to feed the lambs and tend the sheep and feed the sheep. He is that one shepherd to guide the one flock. So let us pray for our Holy Father and do our best to humbly obey when he teaches. God bless you.